And I think, first of all, Mr. Kalappa and the management team, first of all, I think this got slightly delayed than what I was intended. I was actually among 1,000 students, and to come out of that, and it was like something, sometimes just things go beyond your control. And I didn't want to take this call from mobile phone on the way. I rather wanted to speak when I'm back at my station. It is there. So it's such a pleasure to talk to all of you, and very happy to. If you like to say something, Mr. Kalappa, in the background,
Absolutely.
because I start sharing my thoughts.
No, I think I want to do a short intro of yours
Yeah.
while you've been sharing the entire details with our people. Um, Thank you for joining in. I just want to give a quick intro of Mr. Rajshekhar. Such an amazing career, both with the private and government, an IIT rookie, alumni, had such distinguished positions, be it with Aditya Birla, be it with a lot of other companies, ideas, and so on and so forth. And then, getting into the government side of it, because that's his home state, Uttarakhand. He always wanted to do something for his state. How you have Niti Aayog in India, similarly, there is something called Setu Aayog in Uttarakhand. So he's been the vice chairman for it. And he's been doing a tremendous job. And every time when he kind of features with something, he always sends me a clip. And I know that the kind of job what he does for his state is just unbelievable. And also, I had a conversation with him to say that, can we have a chai point in Nainital or in all of the places in Uttarakhand? He said, Kalapa, let's look at an opportune time probably to have your brand in my place. But thank you for coming in and joining in. I'm sure our people would be, delighted to kind of hear from you, and somebody with experience with both private and, I would say government is a very difficult to find combination in people. Ideally you find somebody from government or from private, but I think this is a deadly combination. Looking forward to hear from you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think so kind of your generous words, Mr. Kalappa. And I would just briefly, how much time do we have total?
All yours, whatever time you can tell us.
Okay,
Yes.
because earlier it was 4 to 5, and I just didn't want that we eat it up into something which may be very important after this. So anyway, so let me, share briefly first my journey in a quick snapshot. I was born in a small town in Uttarakhand, and I did my schooling in Nainital. And from there on, I went I cleared IIT and Roorkee and everything at the first attempt at that time. There was not much coaching around at that time. So I went into, IIT Roorkee and did my computer science. And I think some of the best years, as many of you would have been in engineering colleges, would vouch for that. And from there on, a long journey. I graduated at a very young age. I would say that it was all of 19 years and 2 months. And it's not possible to do that. I think earlier it was slightly possible to jump classes early in the childhood. And then on a long career, I've been an entrepreneur also. Way back in 94, I formed a company. I sold its stake in 98. And over a career spanning 35 years in corporate sector, worked with all the large conglomerates like Tata's, Birla's, Ambani's, and a multinational company called Macmillan Publishing, and public, private, worked across various parts of the world, and in India also, in Bangalore, Calcutta, Bombay, and Delhi, and so on. So that's like, across many industries. I'm sure some of you can see it on my LinkedIn profile, but that's not so relevant today. Across industries and so on. And at some time, I really felt that, and I was the president and the global head, the group head for digital transformation at the group level as a conglomerate role for one of India's largest conglomerates, the Aditya Birla Group, which, as you know, spans multiple industries, which is metals and financial services, retail. You have it, they have it. ABG is such part of all of our lives in many, many ways. A $75 billion conglomerate at the group level. So anyway, so that was there. And I really felt at one moment that I must do something for my home state. And that was not only an emotion or a desire, because one has to be really careful, very clear about what we intend to do. It was also about ability to make larger impact, and possibly, as they say, you must reinvent your career a couple of times in your long life. So 5 years was quite long period not to. Of course, I did reinvent in many, many ways. As I said, I worked across multinationals, entrepreneur, and I must tell you what I learned in entrepreneurship was something I take classes at IIMs. I never did an MBA, and not that it is not worth it. It's certainly worth it, and it's just my own story. And but 5 years of entrepreneurship actually taught me such a resilience, because when you're an entrepreneur that everything buck stops at you. There is no one else to look at, which is there, and you are responsible for all the payments, the paychecks, and everything else, and the customer and everything else which is there. So I think that taught me early in my career. So I actually used to joke to people that I did an MBA and I got paid for it as part of my share sale when I sold my stock. And of course, that was a long story. So that's it. But I think huge experience as far as entrepreneur is concerned. And today, it was at a time when entrepreneurship was not considered such a fashion, and it was not difficult. It was difficult to get a job after entrepreneurship. Today, entrepreneurship is something which people encourage at the corporations, that you have to have entrepreneurship in your approach. So after a long time, so my purpose was to be able to make a larger impact and to make what I would say a change in what I'm doing in my life. But not yet different, which is there. That's what I will tell you. My approach has been to planning in the government sector. So and therefore I got my home state. I had a lot of conversations, and while I was in corporate sector also, I was involved in policy. I was a special invitee to Union Cabinet's Empowered Technology Group. I was part of the new education policy formulation, water resources, and many other things. But that was more of being in corporate and then doing something. And then I decided to do full time. And when 2 years back, when I entered the government, and it was a choice of me to completely my choice to enter the government at my peak of my career. That, of course, as you know, it doesn't necessarily pay you, but it creates huge value. I must say that, which is there. So I entered the government, and it's been such a huge experience. I must say that it's been, and my tenure was over last month. And there are a lot of new things being discussed with the government also, that what to do. And there is a whole new horizon which has opened up for me, because I'm no longer, because I'm in a particular role necessarily full time. So that's when I will share my learnings and my insights and my lessons out of it. So these 2 years in government taught me huge things, many things, which is there. And what were my drivers actually? My drivers were ability to make impact at scale. That's extremely important. The other one is a self journey, which is there. That how I learn new and new horizons, and a strong conviction by my driver that this was something I really wanted to do. And of course, as I said, that it allowed me to work. And I would share what's my approach for that. Now, what are the things which I found to be quite different? There are pros and cons. The pros is the scale was very large, which is there. Like when we did sign up the NASSCOM for AI courses, if I would been in trying to do even philanthropy, I would have possibly reached out to maybe 100 students, 200 students, 1,000 students, 2,000 students. But at one stroke of a pen, AI courses from NASSCOM were made available to 140,000 students at one go. Now, that is the scale which we are talking about, and this could be for a larger state, could be even large. So what in government you can do can have impact at scale. And the other thing is very clearly as I said, the real life situation, because you really understand what life is. See, being in a corporate sector, working in a company, you are still in an environment which is relatively protected. Maybe your salespeople are a little more exposed, your finance people are a little more exposed. The degree of exposure differs from person to person. But in government, you really meet real life. You meet farmers, you meet women working in homestays, you meet shopkeepers, you meet retail outlets, you meet people who are working in ASHA workers, people who are, so there's a whole new word which I came to know, which possibly I didn't even know about. Very salutary or perfunctory engagement which is there. So I think you really, and that's where the opportunities lie, because they are, for even corporates, they are customers, potential customers, if not today, which is there. And the breadth of impact. So I see huge possibilities when one gets exposed to government. Of course, there are cons. The animal, sometimes you don't know why government does what it has to do. It's not very, very clear at times. It moves slowly. It doesn't move to be seeming at a clear purpose at times. Now, all these things, there are certain things which are very nature of government, and there are certain things which needs improvement, that they must get improved. And the nature of the government is also such. See, when you are in a corporate sector, you have a choice that which customer segment you want to sell. This is the customer segment. I would like to sell profitably, build a customer base, build a brand value, and so on and so forth. I want to be known as that, positioning, and so on. But when you are in government, there is no choice, because every person of society is your customer in that sense, is your stakeholder. You have to do something where that is one part. Second, the government cannot allow things to go wrong. Even if things go wrong still, that's another matter. But their whole working becomes like that things don't go wrong, or if they say something, tomorrow they say, in corporate sector where we are used to say fail fast, right? And you do things, learn, because unless you do things, but don't bet the company, but do take small risks, and if they don't go what you intend to be, it's fine. I mean, we all keep on doing it all the time. We used to do that, and of course we have to be careful that we don't bet the farm, as they say. But at the same time, the government, you cannot do that, because people look at government with a certain sense of finality, that this is the government doing this. If a government doesn't do, people can go to court and sue the government or defame it, or its reputation can go down. So government work in a certain constrained environment. It's very important to understand that if you deal with government, that there are certain reasons why government behaves in such a way, and they believe a lot in consensus. Because consensus is very important, especially in a democratic society. Now, you might say that there are examples when it doesn't happen. That's okay. I'm saying the way it is designed to be, the way it happens in practice could be done different, and you might differ with that. But the way that designed the government is that you cannot go wrong. You cannot, because you can't explain the risk, because your stakeholders are people who are not necessarily as qualified MBAs or very highly educated people. Your stakeholders are farmers, less literate people, and in democracy, everyone is important. They all have one vote, and they all have as much stake in the government as any rich person would be. So therefore, they have to have consensus. They have to have to take care that things don't go wrong, and they have to take care of everyone. That's why. So that is one part which is there. And of course, there are things which need to improve. If you see the Prime Minister in the last 2 weeks, I've seen three of his speeches, and I very clearly see that. And I told one of his advisors also, and also the chief economic advisor, that the PM is realizing, of course, he knew it, but I'm saying that he has been articulating certain things very clearly, that what needs to be done to take India forward. Now, it's a very huge machinery government. Even if he intends to do, may not be possible to do, because he's not the person who's doing it. And let me tell you that we in companies think sometimes that there's so much politics, there's so much of this thing. Just think of a company of maybe 500 people, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 5,000 people, 10,000 people. You understand what's the dynamics there in the organization. And let's face it, it's there. There is a dynamics. There are people who are, more influential than others, and it's a very fact of life. And you want to make it healthy, but it's a reality. So it's always a, game between, you cannot have a perfect organization. It's very difficult to do that whenever human beings are involved, and you have to be realistic there. But at the same time, you try to see if a 1,000 people company has a problem, how much it takes to manage the whole thing. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of attention. The dynamics can be very, very, very bad at times. And now we have 1.4 billion people. So you can understand how complicated the management could be. And you can't really sit in that chair and say, well, let's do this, and it happens. It doesn't work that way. So I'm just trying to say that governments work in a certain operative environment. And so there are pros and there are cons. But you cannot be away from government in a democratic setup. You have to engage with government one way or the other. Whether it's for a normal operation, whether it is for some new opportunities, whether it is for influencing policy, or whether it is for, and that's very real fact of life. We can't say that it does not happen. The world is not what it should be. The world is what it is. And that's one of my very fundamental beliefs. You can't change the world. You can change the world. There's a very big example I give to people of Lord Krishna often, which is there. But anyway, this is a long story. I won't go into it. And definitely somebody would like to go. I would like to share something on that. So anyway, so what I was trying to say is that the government operates in an environment which is there. And there are certain reasons why it behaves in a certain way. And private sector does in a certain way. So I have in the last 2 years, as I said, that I entered the government and I did study. And because of my planning commission, as the chairman of the planning commission of the state, I was exposed to almost every area, whether it's drinking water, whether it's energy, higher education, school education, agriculture, animal husbandry, and disaster management, energy, and then you have health, and then you have multiple things in health, which is health education, and so on. So there are 66 departments in the state, I can tell you that. And out of this, 50 are line departments. 50 are line, and this is almost for every state, small or big. 50 line departments to be engaged with, and I engage with almost every one of them. And it gives me such a breadth of understanding of how the government works. And I think great fortune, very fortunate to be that. So as I was telling you that there is the way the private sector works, there is a way the government works. And when I entered the government in 2 years, we were able to accomplish many things. And I can tell you that that's what often the thinking at the highest levels of government of India is also. Because I want to say that there are 3 things very important that governments have to do. One is collaboration. They have to learn how to collaborate. Typically, the government DNA is not of collaboration. It's more of command and control. And that's where government has traditionally been. But that should change. Even the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, they keep on saying that the governments have to collaborate. I engage with Niti Aayog a lot. I spoke just recently in one of the major seminars, and so on and so forth. So I think that's extremely important, that collaboration has to run through government. There's so much government can learn from private sector. The second is action orientation. And how do you, be action oriented? How do you, whatever you do has to lead to some results. And third is, of course, out of it is the outcomes. So the action orientation, the outcomes, and the collaboration. Now, these things we take often very granted when it comes to the corporate sector, but they don't come easily in the government. So I actually applied a lot of these principles in the government, and we could do many things. Actually, I think I had 6 Tata companies who started operating in a big way, significantly, Tata Consumers and Indian Hotels, and so on and so forth. So, and many things with farmers direct purchase, we started with Tata Big Basket and so on. So many things we could do. And I can tell you that this is something which the government very clearly needs. And actually I made a presentation recently to the highest levels in Government of India again, that what is really, what are the things which are very important for governments to work? Because we can always criticize, we can always say this doesn't work, but essentially we have to, we the citizens, and we the people who are in more influential positions, we have to take that role of how to influence the system positively. And I clearly said that we need to run strategic programs in a far more cohesive way, which is there. We need to expand the state capacity. The state capacity has gone down because over the years, the number of people are not increased, not trained, and so on and so forth. And also the governance has to improve in which ways. So I can tell you that I was very pleasantly surprised that I was considered a thought leader in public policy. Somebody who was in private sector 2 years back and was considered within 2 years a thought leader in public policy. And because what I did was I applied first principles. I didn't do anything. I understood what are the various subjects. So I can today speak on 2 years back when I was in ABG, I used to speak on how to use AI and computer vision to reduce defects while the aluminum passed through molten aluminum, came out of the smelter and through the lines. No, and from here on, last 2 years I spent on infant mortality rates, maternal mortality rates, agriculture productivity, the cost of procurement of milk, the cost of logistics of milk transfer, and so on and so forth. So you have to understand the subject very well. You have to go deep into the subject. And once you are in the subject and and you know what you're talking about, that's very important is to apply the first principles. What are the first principles? The first principles are, again, as I said, collaborate. First principles are bring efficiency. First principles are define your KPIs, define your goals, what you really want to do, and see that whatever you are doing is focused either towards meeting those goals, or if not, then it is creating a value which can be substantially more than that. So you have to always keep an eye on the ball. So these are the first principles in management which we often do. And if you apply these to the public sector or the government, you suddenly emerge as a thought leader. So as I said, that I was pleasantly surprised when I met the Niti Aayog vice chairman, the new vice chairman, Mr. Ashok Lahiri, recently. And he said that your tenure is over, but there's no way we can let you go. This kind of thinking base. It's very kind of him to say that. It's just there. So I think coming to it, the core question that I was saying is, I spoke on what does the private sector focus, what does the governments work in a certain way, and also if you can even make an impact in government by using these principles and making it more effective, and so on and so forth. And if you do it with clearly as a sensibility, and you know what you're talking about, and you are careful of stakeholders, you are engaging the various stakeholders, then you can definitely get your way through. And what also it teaches a lot is resilience. See, what is resilience? Resilience, we often when we think of it, is not the absence of pain or failure. It is like it is what distinguishes people who are formed by adversity, because there will be adversity. And there will be situations which will change. As we all know today, the world is changing rapidly, and companies are suddenly finding that there's, supply chain is no longer like just in time. It's like just in case something else happens. So how do you be more resilient in such kind of such a scenario which is there? And I think that's one of the big qualities people should make, that because things can change, they can go different than what you thought of, and rather than that, how do you address, how do you look at pathways, how do you look at constantly on the ball, how do you look at how do you secure, and you will be. I was talking to MD of TCPL recently. He said that now all this long range planning is gone. Actually, literally, you do a larger planning, and but then you have to live in a world where there will be turbulence. There would be 1 month which will be very good, there will be next month may not be very good, and the third month may be worse, and the fourth month may be very good. So you have to be always be on their toes, seeing that how can you respond to changing conditions, and in terms of both the cost side of it, the revenue side of it, the customer side of it, putting the product very quickly, capitalizing on opportunities which are come up. So I think that's the kind of organizational DNA is very, very important to build up. And I used it a lot in my, I would say that what it has to do with public sector or government, but it is actually, because when you are working in government, things, suddenly change, because government is more used to changes. Suddenly you will find some new orders coming in. Suddenly you will find somebody's mind changing. Suddenly you will find that something has to be done because it has to address to the public's emerging mood. So I think these things are extremely important, and that's what you learn a lot. And as he said that, and resilience is not something which I would say, as there's often a term called bouncing back, that you bounce back. No, it's bouncing back is again coming back to status quo. I would say that this is like you are here, you had a setback, and then you are back at your place. No, it's actually has to be, as you say, bouncing forward. So it means that you make a further improvement in what you're doing. It's not just that you are just always in the, what you call it, the defense mode or protection mode. You have to be able to capitalize, not just, and that's very much possible, which is there. And it means holding the reality of what went wrong and the possibility of what can next. And simultaneously, it's neither collapsing into neither despair or false optimism, and what you call as, discernment, a capacity to clearly even see in turbulent conditions. I think these are very important traits which are there. And emotional resilience is not suppression. It's the ability to feel the full weight of difficulty and still return to agency, still return to. And so I think these are extremely important. And this will also mean that relational resilience recognizes that, as they say, we are not resilient alone. For every major recovery in a person's life, from professional failure, from personal loss, or from system setback, is underwritten by at least one relationship that held you steady. So I think all of these things are important, that, and systemic resilience, what it means. So I think you have to develop your resilience. It's extremely important. The other thing important bit is to build your narrative muscle. See, narrative is extremely important. Often, as they say, that there's nothing like reality, right? It's all perception. If you really say, if you go to even to Vedantic philosophy, again, I'm a student of Advaita Vedanta, and though this is not the place to really go on Vedanta, but if you see on Vedanta, it completely says that, what is reality? It's completely an illusion of it. If you see it exists, whether it's a wood, whether it's, so it's a lot of theory around it. And I'm getting tempted to speak more and more on that, but I won't. But I'm just saying that build your narrative muscle. What's your narrative? What's your personal narrative? What's your career narrative? What's your company narrative? And I think that narrative is extremely important if you appeal to, because if you have to have stakeholders to address, the stories we tell ourselves about failure are the most consequential variable. So practice reframing. Often, if there is a setback, how do you reframe that? Reframe that, not to artificially manufacture something positivity, but actually you can reframe that in terms of what opportunity which comes up. What did it reveal that you needed to know? What did it build in you that ease that could not have? So I think this is extremely important to build a narrative muscle into it, and look at positivity. And as I said, not manufacture it negatively, but constantly look at what good, what went wrong, how can I bounce back, how can I, what is the kind of positive things I come out of it, which is there. So I think these are very, very extremely important things. And also whom do you are with, what kind of positive energy you are having in the system. So I think these things are extremely important. Practice post-failure debriefs without self-punishment. How do you do that? Because we all pass through situations where things don't go the way it wanted to be. And when I was in government, I clearly thought, I knew that as a planning commission, I have certain abilities to do, but I also have certain, limitations, which is there. And then see, when I joined planning commission, a lot of people said, hey, planning commission, nothing happens. They just give reports and nothing is there. At max, you can tell people what to do and it's their choice whether to do or not, because you can plan for them, but you're not in the executive, which is there. When it came to me, and I said, I completely accept it, which is there, because it is not the role which defines a man. It is a man who defines a role. And we did in such a way that Setu Ayog, that is the State Institute for Empowering and Transforming Uttarakhand, State Niti Ayog for Uttarakhand, was identified by Niti Ayog this year as a model transformation institution. And we were referred in the National Economic Survey also before the budget, which gets published. I completely try to redefine the role. I was very clear when it comes to, I said to my team that half the work we'll do policy making and half the work we'll do on the ground. We will do some pilots, we will do evidences, we will do some experiments which will touch the lives of people, which will build a narrative and which will help. And as they say, as you also know, that you can do good marketing if you have a good product. If you don't have a good product, your marketing will only run for like a while. It won't run beyond, and that, like, you might win, as they say, battle, but you'll lose the war. So you have to have a good product. It's extremely important. There's no doubt about it. And then you have to sell it very well. So I said very clearly that half the work we will do planning. We made many policies, around 8 to 10 very comprehensive policy documents. Some saw light of the day, some did not see light of the day, which is there, which is fine. But half the work, I said to the team, was going to be more on implementing, that we do some pilots. As I said, we opened a training center with Tatas, and Taj Hotels itself is running a hospitality center in Nainital. Tata Big Basket is running a farmers purchase operation. Rallis is running another operation. Mahindras are doing something. and Bill Gates Foundation, we had to do some major project for farmers. So these are actually things which are working, running, and people can see. Now that helped me build the narrative that planning commission is not just about policy, it's about actually on the ground. And that's what people really appreciate. They said, so I think it's very important to reframe it. It's very important to see that you are able to set your goals very clearly and have a clear strategy around it and build a narrative around it. It's completely today, if like for Chai Point also, of course, I'm not so much privy to your strategy internal, but I can I can only say, but it's from outside, is to build a narrative about yourself, that how succeeding you are, how good you are, because you are really good. You have to be good in the first place, which is there, and there's no shortcut to that. But then it's so important to win in the marketplace, which is there. So I think these are some very, very important things. I would say resilience, narrative building, and redefine your relationship with uncertainty, because today is a world of uncertainty, and we have to live with that completely, and we have to be actually comfortable with uncertainty. If you are not comfortable with uncertainty, then there'll be some problem down the line. You completely have to look at it that this is going to be uncertain. And it is very liberating, actually. It's very liberating. You're no longer tied now. And of course, you will take care of your basics, that you're not like, you're not like hand to mouth, or you're not that. So that's okay. That's something which has to do that. But I think as an organization, it's very important that you define your relationship with uncertainty, which is there. And how do you resilience and tolerance for ambiguity are deeply linked, because things will always be, I never believe in black and white. For me, it's gray, either too much gray, less gray, or more gray. And because there's always a possibility of things reframing and changing completely, and so on. So I think some of these things are extremely important. Uncertainty, resilience, and as I said, narrative building, and so on, and also first principles which are there. First principles of, as they say, Elon Musk is too much focused on first principles, though being a trillionaire now, and he became a trillionaire. So just a just a little light example to made of nothing. So I think this is extremely important. First principles are always there. Whatever you do, are we doing the right thing? Is it serving the people it is intended to do? So I think these are some of the things which I learned, I practiced, and I would say that they hold me in very good stead. I'm very proud of what we did at Setu Ayog. As I said, my tenure is over, but at the same time, I've got a new purpose now altogether, completely. I've been there, and there's a lot of discussion going on. And this also helped me, because once you are in government, you deal with very different kind of people, actually. So I got an opportunity to deal with some of the very bright minds, some of the most fascinating minds. And I spend my time between Uttarakhand, Delhi, and Bombay often. And that means the corporate world, how things are moving in the industrial world, how things are moving in the political world. And clearly a view has been developed. I mean, I'm connected to my Gram Pradhans, hundreds of young village heads, the Gram Pradhans which are there, or the Sarpanches in different states, they call that, which is there. And to all the way to some of the India's top industrialists, and all the way from block officer to the topmost office in the country, and from as bright entrepreneurs and very successful, focused entrepreneurs as Mr. Kalappa himself and many others. So I think it gives a great opportunity. And when you interact, you learn a lot. It's always learning, all the time. I mean, I was with the students today. There were 1,000 students, and a lot of students in different walks. I really learned a lot. What is the new generation thinking? Where are they? Where I feel that they are lacking, but what kind of bright questions they have. But still, they have to learn a lot, because they have very basic questions, which is very important, because they still have a lot of things to see and experience in their life and so on. So I think in many ways, as I come back to my from original where I started, the journey has really enriched me a lot extensively. As I said, 35 years of corporate life, and now in government, and now it could be a mix of government and private sector, both, which is there, and so much of opportunity, so many things to do, and hugely learned from corporate sector, and learning still. Actually, I wouldn't say ever that I've learned. I still learn a lot. And that's why I go across various situations. I travel a lot. It's extremely important to travel in various ways to and know and understand. And I spend times with villagers, with Gram Pradhans, with Asha workers, with Anganwadi workers, with the even the people who do artificial dissemination, to farmers who supply milk. And there you really see huge possibilities. And I have a very sincere belief, and which I told to the topmost office also, that the only way this country can we can progress further and further. We are at a very important time in our journey. We are growing, but we have a risk that we might get middled up, as they say Brazil got, we how to break that ceiling, as they say, of a certain per capita which we have. And it's a big challenge in front of country, but as they say, what brought us here may not bring us there. So we have to really work on economic activity across states. The states have to improve a lot. And that's what my big mission nowadays is, to how to work on improving state governance. So a lot of learning across, and these first principles as I shared, and I continue to be very energized and thoughtful with the idea of learning. And at the same time, I can see the way the fascinating opportunities lie. I mean, there has never been a better time which is there for India. I would say that there is no dearth of capital. I can see that. And actually, one of the things which I'm really pursuing nowadays is how to turn cost centers into economic centers. For example, water conservation. If you look at water conservation, and this is the thing I'm trying to bring to the government, which is there, and it is really getting into right ears. If you conserve water, underground water resources, and 50% of Himalayan water resources have dried up, it's a cost, and there's not enough money for it. Nobody is willing to pay more money, some money maybe, to conserve water resources. Now, this is a classic corporate example, that if you look at something as a cost center, you don't get money for it, right? Easily. And so I'm not getting money for it. We didn't get money. But if you make it an economic center, so there was a study which was done that if the water sources are rejuvenated, then the women don't have to travel distances to fetch water, and they can spend that time on agriculture or rearing cows or animal husbandry. And as per the statistical data and research done over time, the returns of spending on water are 40 to 70% in 3 to 4 years, because now they are allowing you to do more economic activity of agriculture. They can spend more time. Of course, you teach them there also, so it has to be a good agriculture, not that they waste their time there. But if you combine both of them, then suddenly the returns are higher. Now, this is what we often in corporate sector, we say that, if you're a cost center, if you continue to remain a cost center, you have to become a value center. What value? And you have to work with someone, some other process in the company, to turn it into a revenue opportunity, or some sort of a cost saving, revenue generating, or value creation opportunity, which can be leveraged. If not today, you create value, can be leveraged later on. So I think this is one very important thinking. So a lot of this work is happening in the research, and I actually presented a paper along with Dr. Shamika Ravi, who's the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council member, on economic models around natural ecosystems. Now, there where the possibilities and opportunities start lying. So I think there are many things I can go on. And of course, as I said, resilience and narrative building, these are extremely important. And they will hold you in good stead. They will hold your organization in good stead. And I can understand from Chai Point itself, the way it's entrepreneurial driven organization, and all of you. And I'm sure that if some of these things, you may be already doing it, it's just possibly a reiteration. Sometimes, I hear things and it strengthens my belief. You don't, and so on and so forth. So I'm sure it'll help a lot. So I will stop here, and I'll be very happy to answer any questions or anything which I may not have said. I will be very happy to even share more about it.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. I think we'll allow the floor to kind of ask a few questions. There are people online. Probably it is open. There is no order. Please go ahead.
Well, Mr. Joshi, I'm Alan here. I've been interacting with you since, I believe, almost 3 months now.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for being online and being on the call. And I understand the urgency of the situation. Just a few feedback. You have seen everything from, let's say, a touchscreen mobile phone to a keypad mobile phone right now. and you've seen how everything changes. And I feel we are also stuck in a system, not me as per se, but even in the corporate world, we are stuck in a system of going between departments as a loop. So I'll give an example. Kalappa knows this. I'm trying to get my passport verified from the past 3 weeks, and I keep roaming around different departments as such. How soon do you think can we use, in your predicament or in your vision, how can we use AI once it's come in to make our things better across the field, both government as well as private places? Because even as me as a person, I'm still stuck in a loop trying to figure out how to get things done at places. Even at corporates, you might be figuring out a file going between different departments or a task going between different departments. So do you think that AI or any tech intervention in the future will help reduce this? I don't want to call it bureaucracy, but I want to call it going between different departments stuck in a loop in the future.
Well, as I said, that AI is going to pervade most of the organization's processes as we see. It continues to do that, and that's a march which different organizations are at different maturity level, or users level, and so on and so forth. So that will happen. And now, see, if I am getting your question right, is that the organizational silos, I don't know if that's the correct word, the silos which get built over a period of time, which is there. And how do we, are you saying that the silos which get built in organizations or in government or in even private companies, how do we see that these silos can get reduced using AI? Is that the right? Is that what I have?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because technically, people don't have information to take a decision. They would actually wait for an email to come from that person. Then only I would action it or do something about it. But
I think I would say that, see, we can always say that there would be some. I've been in IT, as I said, it's in my blood, and computer science, so 35, that's all thing. Since beginning, people have been, senior people, when I was young in the job, have been telling, can there be a system which can just, whatever we discuss can help do that, break the silos and have the meetings recorded and everybody's action known to them, and all that. We always look for such kind of things. I think it's a combination of technology, culture, and process, which is there. I would say that. And culture plays a very big role, and that's where the leadership has to play always a very big role. And that what kind of leadership is there. And when I say leadership, it doesn't mean the top man and one person. It's a collective, in an organization. What kind of culture which comes out. And so that plays a very big role, because when people see that there are people so it will work differently in an organizational context, and it will work differently in a government context, which is there. But again, as I said, it's a leadership which makes a lot of difference, which is there. Collective culture which you built into the organization, that plays a very big role. That how do you work across, and then clearly a message goes down that this is the way it has to work, and what is accepted, what is not accepted, and the right kind of people who are embodying that culture in of course you need enlightened, a lot of ways to do that, a leadership which is balanced to do it. I've been an entrepreneur, and as I said, I've been an entrepreneur, I've been in public sector, I've been in a conglomerate, I've been in an MNC. I mean, whatever organizational culture can be, I've been in that. And so I think a lot depends on that. That is one. And I think a second part is the process part, which is there, how the processes are defined. And there are, of course, software now, and they're emerging. So AI will be able to definitely help a lot to have that the processes are defined by, as I say, business process management, and where if there's something gets delayed, action has to be taken. And if the action, how can you delegate the action ownership down the line? How can you see that people are flagging the risk? What kind of decisions can be taken by people at what level? And what kind of culture is also there? And as the organizations become large, not when I was, I remembered it when when I had started my company in 1994, and there were few people in the beginning. We could define the culture sitting in one room and do things. But when it became 100 people, it became slightly different. And when it reached 500, it was slightly different altogether, and so on and so forth. So I think so it's a combination, I would say that culture, process, and technology. So you have to have all three if you, especially for a long time to come. In the very long run, we have not seen it. As John Maynard Keynes said, in the long run, we are all dead. So I'm not talking 50, 60 years. It doesn't matter for us. We have talk of something which is like, next, our livable life ahead. So in that context, culture will continue to play a big role. I would say that. And what kind of tone do you set up? I mean, I was, I had many turnaround stories in my life, a long story. When I joined Reliance in 2006, I was taken into a room with 150 people and said, this team's all bosses have left in the last, when Anil Ambani and Mukesh Ambani, the Reliance empire split. A lot of people shifted tremendously to other side, and I was taken to a room and said that now this is the team, and their all bosses have left, and overnight they have gone to the other side. Now and this is the team, and now Mr. Joshi, you have to manage and lead this. This was 2006 in Bombay, and in 5 minutes, I was everybody went away. I was alone there with 150 people looking at me, and the entire hierarchy broken down because the top bosses have left. So I knew what it took me brick by brick, to build that team again. And in 6 months, that team actually became one of the most competitive teams there. And the kind of people who were there, I mean, I had lifelong relationships with all of them, literally. So I think a lot depends on this. Then second part is the process, what you define to be. And then there is, of course, the technology to support that. When you say AI can only support a process which is already there, right? And the culture which is right. It cannot, in the near foreseeable future, and 60 years later, I don't know what happens. AI will be all pervasive or whatever. But in the near future, all these three have to play a very common role. I mean, that's the answer I can give. Otherwise, I don't know the exact context which you are speaking about, but these are the three things I could say. But
So, Joshi, I think
culture will continue to play a big role. Yeah.
sorry, thank you for that. I want to ask a quick question. For last close to a year, I've been watching the amount of work what you're doing because I kind of get the link. How did you do so many activities being in the government? I know that you got Tata Style, you got ITC, you got every damn corporate to come into Uttarakhand to do something or the other. The way people do in private, I'm not sure that even the private people are able to do so many things in such a short span of time. How did you achieve this, especially in the government where you need so much of a patience, resilience, and everything? I can add a lot of adjective to it, but how did you do so many things? Is it possible for a person to kind of transform so many people and get them aligned and do so many things?
Well, I would say yes, I do definitely straddle a very, very wide spectrum of relationships. As I said, my time is spent nowadays, like typically I'm 7, 8 days in Bombay nowadays, where I meet with all the corporate industry leaders, finance leaders, and a week in Delhi, where I meet with government and everyone else, and then I spend some time in, half the time then I'm in Uttarakhand or traveling. So see, one thing has always been has characterized my life. That is hard work. There's no substitute for it completely. If you have to do something, I mean, I don't believe in giving 100%. I believe in giving 120% or whatever it is. So you have to put your heart and soul into it, and you have to enjoy it. Actually, I enjoy so much the interactions. As I said, I enjoyed so much meeting those young children today, and I'm really so much enjoying talking to you all also. So I think it's extremely important that we are very clear focused on the what we want to achieve as a goal, and then other thing is that we put a lot into it, and as they say that you have to be able to look at macro and micro view. I think over the years, you get have that insight built that you can zoom in and zoom out, and how you deal with ITC chairman and Tara chairman, and then you deal with the Gram Pradhan as effortlessly as one has to be. So I think it requires hard work, it requires patience, and it requires a little simpler life in the sense that, I think I try to keep myself light in food and everything else, so that, but health is extremely important. If I don't take care of my health, nothing is going to work. And we all know it. If you don't have good health, then actually nothing in the world is worth it at that time. So you have to do that, and you have to read a lot, study a lot, and you have to be in touch with people regularly. And having said it, it's not perfect all the time. You have to accept that there are some imperfections will happen, and they do happen with me also. And but I think hard work, constantly thinking, and how to push the envelope, and learning a lot, reading a lot. I read still today. Every day I manage to read maybe 1 to 1.5 hours. Every day I read still today. And I run a schedule which is like typically 12 to 6 or 1 to 7 at the minimum. I sleep for 6 hours, and 12 to 1 I'm normally operational till that time. And it's constantly learning, constantly doing things. So I think and then you really reach a stage where everything starts feeding into each other, and you meet people and you learn four brighter things. And so I think there's some basic principles, as I said, and over the years, and I've always been very much. I have been driven altogether in my life with ability to make a larger impact, which is there, and having no regrets, and I think it's being done well, and of course, and so larger impact and ability to touch the lives of people has been my goal. And I have been very audacious when it comes to it. I can tell you a very small story again. When I was in 1994, when I started my company, we got a contract from the US government. And believe me, I had no passport at that time. And this was 1994. A small story just. I had no passport, and I had a order in hand saying that you need to we were working on traffic transportation systems, and you have to work and meet the Federal Highways Office in Langley, Virginia. And in Virginia, I had to go, and I had no passport. So we didn't know what to do. And this was 1994, where everything was very different at that time. So one thing which came to my mind was very clearly, I did my normal application because you have to still apply. And then I called the Prime Minister's office. And this is all of 23, 22 I was. And I called up the Prime Minister's office and I said that I need to speak to the Prime Minister. They said, why you want to speak to the PM? I said, I wanted to speak because we had to pawn our gold to the Bank of England, and because of lack of foreign exchange. And the Prime Minister said recently that we must encourage exports. Now, I have an order in my hand, but I don't have a passport, and the passport officer is refusing an audience to me. Now, I want to speak to the PM because I have it in my hand. Now, what do you do about it? I need to convey this. So he was slightly startled. He said, for a passport, you want to speak to the Prime Minister? Manka, yes, because that's what he said. I have no other choice. I cannot go beyond now and do this officer and that officer and that officer and this officer. So he said, okay, you have a merit. What you should do is that, why don't you speak to Lakshmi Puri? She's the Joint Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, and talk to her. Maybe she can help you. Wow, I got the cue. I called Lakshmi Puri's office. I said, the Prime Minister's office has told me that I can speak to you on my passport. So, and this is the reason. And she said, and so she, of course, I mean, it was true. The PMO told me that you can speak to her. And I said that I have an order in my hand. I can fax you right away. So she said, do fax me. So I faxed her. And she said, okay, I'll speak to the passport officer in Calcutta and what he can do about it. So I went to the passport officer in So she must have told, and then I got a call, and I got my passport flat in 8 to 9 days, which is there, 8 days, I think, and I could secure my work. 8 days was a big time. Let me tell you, at that time, it was no tatkal, nothing like that. So I think you have to be, if you have to, for my purpose, if I have to speak to the Prime Minister, I will try to speak to him. Maybe I will not be able to speak, but that confidence you need to have, that if you want to do something, you have to be able to reach to the man. And I can tell you, all of them wear one trouser at one time. Nobody is God's son, which is there. And they all are kind and humble people. I have engaged with some of the topmost industries in the country. They have a strong work ethic. They're very hardworking. They're very clearly focused on the goals, and they didn't take no for an answer. And I normally don't take a no. When I have a conviction that this is the right thing, then this has to happen. Now I'll put that with my charm in my eyes, and straight away looking, I'll say this is important for the country. This is a larger purpose, which is there. This is not for me. This I don't want to gain anything out of it. Even I did a public job. I can understand. I was president in Aditya Birla Group. It can be like it can be handsomely earning job, right? And from there on, I went to the government where I was actually earning not even a fraction of that. So that gave me confidence. I said, see, I'm not here to make money in the first place. I have left good amount of money. I have a life in Bombay. I have an apartment and a car in Bombay myself. So I'm here. And hence it is all for the people. And when you start doing that, your purpose, your larger purpose drives you. This is what Lord Krishna said in Gita also. When your larger purpose starts driving you, then you realize that things happen and they start happening. And it is, as they say, there's a Shah Rukh Khan film dialogue in Om Shanti Om, कि कायनात आपको जब आप किसी चीज को शिद्दत से चाहो तो पूरी कायनात आपके जो है उसको मिलाने में आपके लग जाती है. So it's like that. So if you have a belief, if you have a conviction, if you have that confidence, if you know you're not doing just for your own personal benefit, and then you find that things start happening.
No, I think
Sorry,
that's
a little longer answer to your question. Yeah.
No, I know. I think, but the example what you gave about 23, 24, getting a passport, calling PMO's office, I think that requires some sort of doing. Especially at that age, it's not easy to kind of get there. I think it's an amazing example. Amazing example.
So you have to be audacious and you have to be slightly clever, because I just wanted to have a word from the PM office and that was it. And that did my work. And it was all right cause. There was nothing. I was not going to do a pleasure trip. I was going to I got an order and I need to fulfill that.
Absolutely. Sorry, I just want to ask one more time. Anyone online want to ask any question?
All good from me, sir. And I'm sure that it was really, really interesting hearing from you, because it's, like I don't know how you put it, like an old uncle who's actually telling me, not I'm calling you old, but then actually showing us that what the world can be even with simple acts like this. Yeah, there's a lot of learning for all of us. And we also started something like a skills university. We are tying up with the skills university, running a BWalk and a DWalk program here, taking a lot of NAPS trainees, and the interest and, the time and effort putting in into educating people rather than just getting a degree, and making the youth enabled to actually take up bigger roles over here for the country is something we do at Chai Point as well. That is something that we would like to highlight to our team, that we're just touching lives through chai as such, and giving hope and, the method of education for people, the method of learning for people to give them that life skills to actually grow in themselves. It's a very niche area. Not many people do it for the sake of education. We are trying to get that thing done away. So there's a lot of learning that we can learn from you. A good example from all of our team, sir.
Thank you. No, I think Chai Point is, chai is because the way, and chai is one of the most, I would say, environmental, and socio-economic friendly product. Because we have some tea gardens in Uttarakhand. I know it is not just women who work on tea gardens a lot. So there's a lot of women employment increases. There is a tourism around it. So there is an ancillary economy. And there is a lot of green contribution, because there's so much of greenery with the tea industry brings in. So there's so many benefits to it. And if you are helping, if you have this industry grow further and further in a more organized way and creating more value, I think it is certainly, and of course, the skill part of it, you said, there is so much. The larger purpose always gives you strength. Let me tell you that. As a smaller purpose makes you weak, larger purpose strengthens you. This is Indian philosophy.
Right. Mr. Joshi, thank you so much for joining, enlightening all of us. I think some of the examples is brilliant. Not too many people, in this sector has public, private, all kind of permutation, combination experience. But thank you for, also enlightening us. And I would say we are actually highly, knowledgeable today, at least from a PPP perspective. But thank you for joining. I appreciate your time. And Ellen, I think Ellen has been, just behind you to kind of ensure that we have you on board and kind of talk to us. But thank you. I appreciate all your time and everything.
Thank you so much. I think I really also enjoyed this conversation because since I met you in Sikkim, I always
Right.
very, very positive image. And as they say, I'm sure that a man makes an institution is a lengthened shadow of a man, as they say that. I'm sure that the values which I experienced in a short time, they must be, carrying forward to the organization. So I wish all of you the very best, and I'm sure you will become more and more formidable as time, passes. Yeah.
Thank you for the kind words, and thank you so much. And thank you everyone online as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Namaskar.